Have you ever wondered how you would react if, overnight, everything you believed to be secure simply collapsed? Have you imagined waking up in the morning, going through your routine as usual, only to discover at the end of the day that your future would be completely different from what you had planned? What would you do if what you considered your greatest nightmare later became the turning point of your life? Could it be that, amid the chaos, the universe was trying to show you a greater path? This is the true story of Elijah Robinson, a man who believed he had his life under control until he lost the job that supported not only his bills but also his self-esteem and his vision for the future. What seemed like the absolute end slowly transformed into a powerful new beginning, guided by the law of attraction. But before that could happen, Elijah had to face the weight of the fall, the fear of uncertainty, and the sense that he had failed himself and everyone around him. That morning, Elijah got up early, as he did every day. His dreadlocks tied in an improvised bun, a hot cup of coffee on the kitchen table, and his mind already preoccupied with office tasks. He didn't love what he did, but he had learned to convince himself that the job was necessary. After all, it was his source of stability, the way to pay rent, support his family, and maintain a seemingly solid routine. It wasn't a dream job, but it was a job, and in his mind, that was enough. The day started normally, the sound of city traffic, messages on his phone, coworkers chatting about trivial matters. But deep down, Elijah felt a silent exhaustion, as if something inside him was pushing him to ask, "Is this it? Will my life always be like this?" He never had the courage to answer himself, because the fear of losing what he already had seemed far greater than the desire to risk something new. Then, in the middle of that afternoon, he was called into the manager's office. The tone was serious, yet polite. The speech was rehearsed. "Unfortunately, due to company cuts, we have to terminate your contract. It's not about you, not about your performance, but about adjustments we need to make." Elijah heard the words as if blades were piercing his skin. No matter how much they tried to soften it, all he felt was rejection, failure, and an uncertain future unfolding before him. He left the office holding a cardboard box, collecting his few belongings from the desk. A notebook, his favorite pen, a framed photo of his family. The weight wasn't in the box, it was in his heart. The hallway seemed longer than ever, colleagues' glances a mixture of pity and indifference, and the exit door became the gateway to an enormous emptiness. Outside, sitting on a bus stop bench, Elijah let the wind hit his face as he tried to process it all. Now what? How will I pay the bills? How will I explain to my mother that I no longer have a job? What will I do with my life? The shame was almost greater than the fear. He felt diminished, powerless, as if he had lost not only his job, but also his identity. In the days that followed, the routine that had once been predictable shattered into fragments. Waking up with nowhere to go felt like a punishment. Hours dragged slowly, and the silence of the apartment echoed like a cruel reminder of what he had lost. Elijah stared at himself in the mirror, questioning whether he still had value, whether he could still be someone in the world. His mind filled with doubts. Will I get another job? Will I have to take anything just to survive? Will I ever feel at peace again? But the most painful part was the feeling of disappointing his family. Elijah came from a community where every achievement was celebrated, but where every failure weighed like a collective burden. He remembered the pride in his mother's eyes when he told her he had gotten that job, and now, how could he look at her and say that it was all over? That pressure crushed him, making every breath harder. And yet, something inside him kept questioning. A soft, almost imperceptible voice asked, "Is this really the end? Or is it a call to something greater?" Elijah tried to ignore it because it seemed impossible to believe in any positive sign at that moment. But deep down, that question planted a seed. Days turned into weeks, and weeks felt like months. Elijah found himself trapped between the need to act and the paralysis of fear. He applied for jobs, sent resumes, but nothing seemed to work. The phone remained silent. Money was running out. Pressure grew. Anxiety followed him day and night like a shadow that offered no respite. It was during this period, amid the darkness, that Elijah first encountered the idea of the law of attraction. But that is something you will discover in the next part of this story. When the office door closed behind Elijah that day, he believed that everything he had built until then had been destroyed. But the real battle was just beginning. In the following days, his life seemed to lose its colors, as if someone had slowly erased the brightness from the world. The apartment, once just simple, now felt like a prison where every wall reflected his doubts and every corner echoed his silence. He woke up early, but had nowhere to go. His body still remembered the routine: open his eyes at 6, make coffee, tie his dreadlocks back, put on minimally presentable clothes. But now, after those automatic gestures, came the void. The silence was deafening. The kitchen table no longer held the hastily abandoned cup before leaving for work. The clock seemed to mock him, dragging minutes as if they were centuries. In the first days, Elijah tried to deceive himself. He told himself it was just a short phase, that he would soon receive a call, a positive response, an unexpected invitation. But reality was harsh. Weeks dragged on, and no response came. Every resume email sent was another scream into a desert that gave no echo. Financial pressure began knocking at his door. Bills piled up on the table. With every envelope opened, the weight on his chest grew. The sense of failure grew in proportion to his debts. Elijah had pride in being independent, in never needing to ask for help, but now he realized that pride could become a prison. His family also felt the effects. His mother, a woman of unwavering faith, tried to console him with words of hope. "Son, when one door closes, God opens another." But Elijah heard those words as if listening to distant music, beautiful but unable to touch his heart at that moment. He smiled to avoid worrying her further, but inside he was shattered. Friends invited him out to distract himself, but he refused. He felt ashamed of having nothing to report, of no longer being the stable man he seemed to be. With every avoided meeting, his isolation grew. And the more alone he became, the more his mind became his enemy. Dark thoughts haunted him. "You're worthless. You failed. You'll never recover." It was as if the dismissal had taken not only his security, but also his identity. Nights were even worse. He lay in bed, but sleep wouldn't come. He stared at the ceiling, remembering the scenes of the day he was let go, reliving the weight of every word the manager had said. The cardboard box with his belongings remained in the corner of the room, like an open wound he didn't have the courage to close. His heart raced, his body sweated, and thoughts spun in circles. Sometimes he felt so exhausted that he just wanted to disappear for a few hours, to escape himself. And it was in one of those sleepless nights that something happened. Unable to sleep, Elijah picked up his phone and started scrolling aimlessly. Among random videos, he came across a motivational lecture. It was an old clip from a Bob Proctor seminar. He almost skipped it, thinking it was just another empty speech. But one phrase made him stop. "If you can see it in your mind, you can hold it in your hands." That phrase struck deep. For a few seconds, Elijah felt as if someone had lit a candle in a dark room. He didn't fully understand it yet, but something awakened. He became curious, yet skeptical. After all, how could mere thoughts change his reality? He was broke, unemployed, with no prospects. How could a simple idea reverse all that? Still, he saved the video. The next day, he watched it again. Then he searched for more clips. He found accounts of people claiming to have changed their lives by applying the law of attraction. Some seemed exaggerated, almost unbelievable, but others had a sincerity that intrigued him. At first, Elijah laughed to himself. "There's no way just thinking positive will pay my bills." But the more he researched, the more he realized it was not just about thinking positive. It was about aligning his mind, beliefs, and actions. It was about changing the way he saw himself and the world around him. Yet skepticism was strong. For a man who had lived a hard reality, believing the mind could create paths seemed fanciful. But something inside him wouldn't let him ignore it. Perhaps it was desperation, perhaps a spark of hope, but he decided to try. Before that could happen, Elijah had to face the worst within himself. One morning, he woke up and simply couldn't get out of bed. The weight of depression paralyzed him. He stared at the ceiling and thought, "My life is over." He cried silently, feeling small, invisible. It was in this moment of extreme vulnerability that something shifted. Between tears, he remembered the phrase he had heard. If you can see it in your mind, you can hold it in your hands. He didn't know how, but he decided to hold on to it. That morning, the sun filtered through the thin curtains of Elijah Robinson's apartment as if offering a silent invitation to start anew. He had woken with a heavy chest, yet unlike previous days, he didn't let himself fall again into the cycle of destructive thoughts. He remembered the notebook he had started writing a night before. He remembered the trembling words spoken in front of the mirror. "I am not my failure. I will find my purpose." They still sounded strange, almost like he was lying to himself. But at the same time, there was a spark there, something different that insisted on remaining. Elijah opened the notebook again and read the phrases he had hastily written. "I am capable. The universe conspires in my favor. My life is changing for the better." As he read them, he noticed his heart racing, caught between disbelief and hope. He couldn't explain why, but those words seemed like a reminder that he still had a choice. He could sink into despair or try to believe in something greater. He decided to create a small routine. He didn't know exactly how to practice the law of attraction, but he remembered the videos he had watched of Bob Proctor and a few motivational lectures. A simple idea came to him. Every day, right after waking, he would dedicate a few minutes to repeating those phrases out loud. It might seem ridiculous, but he had nothing to lose. That morning, his voice still thick with sleep, Elijah stood before the mirror and said again, "I am capable. The universe conspires in my favor. My life is changing for the better." At first, it seemed like an empty ritual. His reflection stared back with suspicion, as if mocking him. But as he repeated the phrases, he noticed something curious. With each repetition, his posture changed slightly. His shoulders lifted, his gaze steadied, his breathing grew deeper. It was as if he were training not only his mind, but also his body to believe in something different. After a few days of repeating this habit, Elijah decided to take it a step further. He remembered a technique he had seen in another video: visualization. The idea seemed even stranger than affirmations. Close your eyes and imagine that you are already living the life of your dreams? At first, he questioned himself. Isn't this just child's play? Isn't this a waste of time? But again, he had nothing to lose. He sat on the edge of the bed, closed his eyes, and tried to imagine. At first, his mind was restless, thinking of overdue bills, unanswered interviews, the silent phone. But he persisted. He took a deep breath and slowly began to visualize something different. He saw himself entering a creative space, working on something that truly inspired him. He didn't know exactly what yet, but he felt the energy of being in a place where his soul was alive. He saw himself smiling, receiving messages of recognition, sharing something meaningful with others. As he held that image, an unexpected emotion arose. His eyes filled with tears. It wasn't sadness. It was as if he had touched a hidden truth within himself, something he had never allowed himself to dream of: the possibility of living a life with purpose. In the following days, Elijah made this practice more consistent. He spent 10 to 15 minutes each morning imagining, feeling, believing, even if only for moments, that his life was changing. Sometimes he emerged from visualization feeling lighter, almost energized. Other times, doubt returned like a storm, whispering, "You're fooling yourself. "This doesn't work. Your life won't change." This internal battle was intense. Some days his mind seemed his greatest ally, on others his worst enemy. Elijah had to learn not to give up on the hard days. He discovered that believing was not easy, but persisting was necessary. Then something curious began to happen. Small signs appeared. Nothing spectacular, nothing that changed his life overnight, but details seemed to carry hidden messages. One morning, while walking to the bakery, he ran into an old school friend, Marcus, whom he hadn't seen in years. During a brief conversation, Marcus said, "Hey man, I was thinking about you recently. We're running a community project in the neighborhood to inspire young people to believe in themselves, and I thought you might like to get involved." Elijah smiled politely, but inside he was surprised. He hadn't told anyone about his recent affirmations and visualization practices, and now, out of nowhere, someone was inviting him to something that seemed connected to purpose, inspiration, and transformation. Was it a coincidence or a sign? On another occasion, while browsing the internet, he stumbled upon an article about people who had overcome deep crises by changing their mindset. One line read, "The world doesn't change until you change within." That phrase hit him like a lightning bolt. It seemed written just for him. These experiences, even small, began to ignite a spark of faith within Elijah. He still had doubts, but he could no longer deny that something was happening. It was as if the universe was subtly responding, showing him that it was paying attention. As the weeks passed, Elijah felt a change within himself. He still didn't have a job, still faced financial difficulties, but something in his energy had transformed. He began waking up with more drive, walking with his chest held higher, looking people in the eyes with greater confidence. He felt that in some way he was attracting new possibilities. It was at this point that an important decision arose. Elijah realized he couldn't just repeat phrases and visualize without also taking action. The law of attraction, he understood, wasn't instant magic, but a partnership between faith and movement. So he decided to direct his energy toward opportunities aligned with what he truly wanted. Not just any job, but something meaningful. This decision, though simple, would mark a turning point in his life. By aligning thought, emotion, and action, Elijah began attracting far more powerful experiences. But that part of the story is what you will discover in the next stage. The autumn sun gently warmed the streets of Chicago, and Elijah walked feeling different. There was something new in him, as if life were finally aligning the pieces of a puzzle he had never believed he could assemble. Since he had begun daily his visualizations and affirmations, his perception of the world had radically changed. Small signs appeared along his path, each seeming to confirm that the universe was listening. One morning, while having coffee in a small neighborhood bakery, Elijah absent-mindedly noticed a poster on the wall that read, "When one door closes, another opens. Trust the process." That seemingly simple phrase made his heart race. It felt as though it had been written just for him. That day, upon returning home, he found in his mailbox a flyer from a local community center, offering a free workshop on discovering purpose and positive mindset. Elijah smiled immediately. He didn't believe in coincidences. To him, it was further evidence that his faith was attracting exactly the experiences he needed to live. At the workshop, he was welcomed into a warm atmosphere. People of different ages and backgrounds shared their challenges and achievements. But what caught his attention most was the speaker, a charismatic woman named Angela Moore, who spoke with conviction about how the law of attraction had transformed her own life. What you focus on expands. What you feel, you attract. If you want to change your reality, start by changing the energy you put out into the world, said Angela, her eyes shining. Those words resonated with Elijah. He realized he had already been applying much of what she said, but now he understood it on a larger scale. It wasn't just about wishing, but about aligning thought, emotions, and actions with what one wanted. During a practical exercise, each participant was asked to write in detail what their true life purpose was.
Elijah took the pen, breathed deeply, and for the first time allowed what was in his heart to flow freely. He wrote, "I want to inspire people. I want to show that even in the midst of the greatest challenges, it is possible to rise again. I want to use my voice, my stories, and my experiences to help others believe in themselves. My purpose is to transform lives through inspiration and faith in the power of the mind." When he finished writing, tears silently ran down his face. They were not of sadness, but of release. It was as if he had finally found the central piece that gave meaning to everything. In the following days, Elijah began waking up more motivated. He created a morning routine that included meditation, reading excerpts from Bob Proctor and Neville Goddard, positive affirmations, and visualizing himself as a speaker and mentor. He imagined himself on stage, in front of an attentive audience, sharing his story and serving as living proof that the law of attraction could transform any reality. It was during this period that something unexpected happened. An old college friend, Marcus Green, contacted him via social media. Marcus worked at an NGO for vulnerable youth and was looking for someone to give a motivational talk to the teenagers in the project. Elijah was stunned for a few seconds. It was as if the universe had heard his request and answered immediately. His heart raced, and a smile spread across his face. "Marcus, I'd love to. Count me in." That night, Elijah could hardly sleep. He kept visualizing the moment he would take the stage, feeling the audience energy, and delivering his message with authenticity. At the same time, a voice inside tried to sabotage him. What if you fail? What if no one connects with you? But unlike before,
The days following Elijah Robinson's first lecture felt like a continuous awakening. It was as if an invisible door had been thrown open, and behind it, a corridor full of new opportunities guided him step by step. Every morning when he woke up, Elijah felt a kind of excitement he had never experienced before. His routine of visualizations and affirmations had become sacred. He would play soft music, close his eyes, and picture himself in larger auditoriums, on illuminated stages, facing audiences hungry for hope. In his visualizations, he heard applause, saw tears of emotion on the faces of the crowd, and felt in his chest the vibration of gratitude for being there. He was already living that reality internally and knew that, sooner or later, the external world would reflect what he cultivated within himself. And the universe didn't take long to respond. A few weeks after his first lecture, Elijah received a call from Angela Moore, the speaker he had met at the Life Purpose Workshop. She had heard about his presentation to the youth at the NGO and was impressed with the comments circulating on social media. "Elijah, I've organized an event called Journey of Transformation, and I want you to participate as a guest speaker. I know you're just starting out, but your story is exactly what people need to hear." Elijah froze for a few seconds. This was exactly what he had been visualizing every morning. His heart pounded with intensity, but alongside the excitement, fear tried to creep in again. "You're not experienced. Are you ready for this?" He took a deep breath, smiled, and replied with conviction, "Angela, it would be an honor. Count me in." In the days leading up to the event, Elijah dedicated himself with discipline. He prepared his speech, but more than that, he prepared his mind. Every word he rehearsed was accompanied by a genuine feeling of gratitude, as if he were already living the dream of inspiring crowds. On the big day, the auditorium was packed. Over 200 people awaited the lectures. Elijah looked at the illuminated stage and felt butterflies in his stomach, but also a certainty. He was exactly where he was meant to be. When he stepped onto the stage, something inside him expanded. He began his talk by recounting the day he was fired, describing in detail the emptiness, fear, and sense of failure. Many in the audience immediately related. Then he revealed how he had discovered the law of attraction, how he immersed himself in daily practices of visualization, gratitude, and affirmations, and how it had changed not only his worldview, but his entire reality. I believed that losing my job was the end, but what I discovered is that sometimes the universe knocks us down not to destroy us, but to realign us. I was pushed out of a place where I no longer belonged to be guided to my true purpose. And today I'm here to tell you, life is not against you, life is for you. You just need to trust and align your mind with what you want to live. With each sentence, the energy in the room grew. People nodded, some wiped away tears. Elijah didn't speak with words alone, he conveyed emotion. His vulnerability became his greatest strength. At the end, the audience rose to applaud. Elijah felt his heart explode with gratitude. It was the first time he had experienced the power of impacting so many people at once. After the lecture, a line formed to speak with him. Men and women hugged him, thanked him, and said they had found hope in his story. A young woman of about 25 said, "I also lost my job recently, and I felt lost. Today, you made me see that this can be a new beginning, not the end. Thank you for sharing your pain and your victory." Those words resonated with Elijah with an indescribable weight. He realized that his pain had transformed into medicine for others. That was true purpose. In the following days, messages began to arrive on his social media. People who had attended the lecture sent thanks, shared their own stories, and asked for advice. Elijah spent hours responding to each message with patience and care. He knew that this human connection was an essential part of his mission. But the universe had even more surprises. A week later, Elijah received an unexpected proposal. An independent publisher had watched the recording of his lecture and was interested in turning his story into a book. "Elijah, your story is powerful and can reach thousands of people beyond live events. We want to help you publish your first inspirational book." Elijah was stunned. He had always loved writing, but had never considered publishing a book. Now the universe presented this opportunity before him. He accepted and began writing with passion. Each chapter of the book was an extension of his soul. The memories of being fired, the emptiness, the discovery of the law of attraction, the practice of gratitude, the visualizations, and the miracles that had begun to appear in his life. Writing was almost therapeutic for him. He felt he was documenting not only his story, but also a guide for anyone lost and seeking a new beginning. During this process, Elijah realized something even deeper. The more he shared his journey, the more the universe brought new opportunities. It was as if he had entered a flow of abundance where every step towards purpose generated even more paths. One of the most remarkable moments came when he received a message from a young man named Jamal, living in another state, who had seen a video of his lecture on YouTube. "Mr. Elijah, I thought about giving up on life, but after hearing your story, something changed inside me. I decided to try one more time. You gave me hope." Reading those words, Elijah cried. He cried deeply out of gratitude and humility. He realized that his purpose was not small. He had the chance to touch lives, perhaps even save them. Every message, every hug, every renewed hopeful gaze confirmed that he was on the right path. But along with victories came challenges. Elijah realized that the more he exposed himself, the more criticism appeared. Skeptics mocked his ideas about the law of attraction, calling him naive. Instead of being shaken, Elijah learned to see this as part of the process. He remembered words he had read in one of Bob Proctor's books. "When you commit to a purpose, the universe will test your faith. It is up to you to stand firm or retreat." And Elijah stood firm. Every criticism was met not with anger, but with serenity. He understood that those comments came from people trapped in their own pain and limitations. His role was not to argue, but to continue illuminating the path through his own transformation. And so, day by day, Elijah strengthened his journey. He was no longer the desperate man who had cried in a dark room after being fired. Now he was a beacon. And within himself, he knew that the best was yet to come. Elijah Robinson's initial success did not come without challenges. As his story spread, he began to feel the weight of responsibility. Every lecture, every message received, every note of gratitude became a constant reminder. His mission was growing, and with it, the need to stay aligned and centered. While reading and replying to comments on social media, Elijah realized something profound. Many people were not just seeking inspiration, but concrete solutions. They wanted to know how to practically apply the law of attraction in their lives. This required more than sharing his story. It required deepening his knowledge and experiences to become a true guide. And so Elijah decided to invest in his personal growth. He enrolled in advanced personal development courses, read specialized books, and participated in online mentorships. He spent hours studying, practicing, and refining techniques in visualization, affirmations, gratitude, and energy alignment. Every new discovery was immediately applied in his life, not only as a personal practice, but as an experience he could share with his audience. Despite this progress, doubts and fears still emerged. He wondered, what if I'm not ready for the next level? What if my words don't really impact anyone? What if I fail in front of a larger audience? These thoughts appeared like shadows trying to undermine his confidence. To confront them, Elijah began practicing something he had learned in one of the mentorships: the exercise of conscious presence. Every day, he dedicated time to meditate deeply, observing his thoughts without judgment, allowing doubt and fear to exist without letting them control his actions. Over time, he realized that his emotions were not enemies, but signals that he was expanding and facing something new. Then came the invitation that would change his trajectory. Angela Moore, impressed by his dedication and the impact of his lectures and posts, proposed that he participate in a national motivational lecture tour. It would be a unique opportunity to travel to different cities, share his story with thousands of people, and simultaneously build a solid foundation for his book and future mentorships. Elijah was silent for a few seconds upon hearing the invitation. It was exactly what he had been visualizing months before, but it also represented a huge challenge. He thought of his family, finances, travel logistics, and the responsibility of performing in front of large audiences. Doubt tried to creep in again. But this time, Elijah did not hesitate. He took a deep breath and said to himself, "I've come this far to be ready for this. Now is the time to expand, to trust, and to deliver my message to as many people as possible." Preparation for the national tour began with intensity. Elijah refined his communication techniques, rehearsed his lectures in front of mirrors, and recorded practice videos to analyze gestures, expressions, and tone of voice. He also studied travel logistics, financial planning, and strategies to engage diverse audiences. Every detail mattered because he knew his mission was bigger than himself. On the day of the first lecture of the tour, Elijah was in Atlanta in an auditorium with more than 500 people. Emotion took over as soon as he stepped on stage. But unlike before, now there was confidence. Every word that left his mouth carried authenticity and energy. He shared his story with passion, describing his firing, the emptiness, the moment he discovered the law of attraction, and how he transformed his life step by step. The audience reacted impressively: tears, applause, smiles, and attentive gazes. Some cried silently, others wrote down every word as if it were a survival manual. Elijah felt the energy of hundreds of people connected on the same frequency. It was a transcendental experience, almost like being in communion with the universe. After the lecture, a woman approached him, emotional. "Elijah, I recently lost my business. I thought it was all over. But after hearing your story, I realized I can start over. You gave me hope." Elijah felt a warmth in his chest. Every encounter, every story shared, was confirmation that he was fulfilling his purpose. But he also knew he needed to stay grounded. Success, however exciting, required continuous discipline and constant alignment with the law of attraction. During the tour, Elijah began noticing subtle patterns in his life. He observed that every action taken with clear intention and positive emotion generated unexpected opportunities. A casual meeting in a cafe led to an invitation for a lecture in another city. A sincere comment on social media attracted the attention of influential people who could amplify his impact. Everything seemed connected by an invisible thread, and Elijah understood that this was the power of the energy he had been cultivating. However, not everything was easy. Long trips, adapting to new places, interrupted sleep, and the weight of always needing to be inspired took their toll. Elijah felt physical and mental fatigue, but something stronger remained: the certainty that every effort was worth it. He learned to balance rest, meditation, and daily visualization practice to keep his energy high and consistent. Between cities, Elijah reflected on how the firing that seemed like the end of his life had actually been the most powerful starting point. Every challenge faced, every fall, every night of doubt had contributed to his preparation. He now understood that the universe only offers opportunities compatible with each person's level of internal growth. The more he expanded mentally and emotionally, the more the world responded with transformative experiences. One of the most memorable moments of the tour happened in New York, in a vast auditorium filled with young people and adults eager for inspiration. Elijah stepped on stage, looked at the audience, and said, "We all face moments when we think life is over. But I want you to know the apparent end is often the beginning of something much greater. Every challenge is a disguised opportunity. Every pain can transform into purpose. And the law of attraction isn't magic. It reflects what you believe, feel, and act upon. If you align yourself with what you desire, the universe conspires in your favor." At the end, he received a storm of applause. Many people approached him, sharing stories of overcoming challenges and asking for guidance. Elijah felt that he was doing more than sharing knowledge. He was touching lives, planting seeds of hope in every heart present. As he walked through the corridors of the auditorium after the lecture, Elijah reflected on his own journey. He remembered nights of despair, loneliness, uncertainty. Every moment of pain now seemed a precious lesson. Every tear shed a preparation for his greater purpose. He smiled, knowing he was exactly where he needed to be. At that moment, Elijah understood something crucial. True transformation did not come only from external opportunities, but from internal change, from the alignment of thought, emotion, and action. He had learned to trust the process, to listen to the subtle signs of the universe, and to act with purpose. And most importantly, Elijah realized that his role extended beyond his own life. He now had a responsibility to be a bridge between people and the transformative power of the law of attraction. Every story shared, every experience lived, every action taken with intention became inspiration for hundreds, thousands, perhaps millions of lives. As the national tour continued, Elijah knew greater challenges would come. But unlike before, he did not fear the unknown. Now he saw every difficulty as an opportunity for growth, every criticism as a chance to strengthen his faith, every opportunity as a result of his dedication and alignment with purpose. Elijah Robinson's journey was only beginning. He knew that what had seemed like the end of his life, the firing, the emptiness, the fear, had actually been the most powerful starting point of all. And as he continued, inspiring and transforming lives, he felt a deep gratitude for every step taken, every lesson learned, every victory, no matter how small.
As the national circuit progressed, Elijah Robinson began to feel that life was about to present him with an even greater test. He had been enjoying growing recognition, opportunities that once seemed impossible, and a deep sense of alignment with his purpose. But as he had learned throughout his journey, every victory carried within it the seed of a challenge. It all started with an invitation to a major international event, a personal development conference with thousands of participants from various countries. It would be his first presentation outside the United States, and the visibility would be immense. At the same time, the pressure was enormous. Any misstep could jeopardize his credibility and negatively impact the lives he sought to inspire. When he received the official invitation, Elijah felt a mix of excitement and anxiety. His heart raced, and for a few minutes he found himself imagining scenarios of failure, forgetting words, failing to convey emotion, not connecting with the international audience. But then he took a deep breath and remembered what he had learned over the past months. Fear is only a sign of expansion. If I am being tested, it's because I can overcome it. If I am being challenged, it's because I can grow even more, he said to himself with conviction. Preparation for this conference was intense. Elijah reviewed every part of his presentation, trained for hours in public speaking, studied cultural nuances of the international audience, and refined his visualization techniques. He didn't just want to give a lecture, he wanted to provide a transformative experience, a meeting that could change each participant's perception of their own life. When the big day arrived, Elijah was in London. The auditorium was enormous, with a capacity of over 3,000 people, and the energy was palpable. Just stepping onto the stage, he felt the weight of responsibility. But unlike in the past, there was no paralyzing fear. There was focus, intention, and a deep connection to his mission. Each of you carries immense power within you. Every challenge you face, every obstacle, every fall is not to destroy you, but to guide you to what truly matters. Today, I am here to show you that transformation is possible, but it begins within each one of us. As he spoke, Elijah felt his heart resonate with the energy of the audience. He described his dismissal, the emptiness he had felt, the discovery of the law of attraction, and how small daily changes, visualizations, gratitude, alignment of thought and action had completely transformed his life. Every sentence was accompanied by genuine emotion, and every gaze from the audience was met with empathy and authenticity. At the end of the lecture, something unexpected happened. During the Q&A session, a young man stood up and asked with a trembling voice, "Mr. Robinson, what if the law of attraction doesn't work for me? What if I do everything right and nothing changes?" The question struck Elijah deeply. He remembered his own doubts in the past, the nights when he questioned whether he could truly change his life. With calmness, he replied, "I completely understand your concern. Many times we think we are not ready to receive what we desire. The law of attraction is not magic. It is a reflection of what you believe, feel, and act upon. If you feel doubt or fear, don't be discouraged. Acknowledge these emotions, align yourself with what you want, and keep acting with intention. Transformation requires patience, faith, and consistency. But I can assure you, if you persist, it will happen." The young man nodded, visibly moved, and Elijah realized that this moment was not just about sharing knowledge, but about creating a bridge of hope for someone who felt lost. The next day, Elijah received news that shook his world. The publisher that was supposed to release his book was facing severe financial problems and would cancel the publication. For a moment, frustration and doubt threatened to overwhelm him. All the work, all the effort seemed about to vanish. But Elijah remembered a practice he had learned months earlier, trusting the universe, even in the face of apparent chaos. He took a deep breath, closed his eyes, and visualized his book being published, spreading his message across the world. He felt the emotion of holding his own book, of seeing people read it and be inspired by his story. That same day, while walking the streets of London, his phone rang. It was a small, independent publisher who had seen his lecture online. "Elijah, we heard your story at the conference, and we believe your book must be published. We have the resources to support its publication, and we want to help you reach as many people as possible." Elijah's heart exploded with gratitude. The universe had turned an apparent obstacle into an even greater opportunity. He understood that difficulties were never signs of failure, but tests of faith and persistence. While working on the new edition of the book, Elijah also faced another challenge, balancing his personal and professional life. Constant travel, lectures, interacting with thousands of people, and writing demanded physical and mental energy. It was easy to get lost in the rush and forget to take care of himself. To maintain balance, Elijah resumed practices that once seemed secondary but had now become essential. Daily meditation, physical exercise, mindful eating, moments of silence, and introspection. He realized that his energy was not only fuel for his own transformation, but also for the transformation of those who followed him. Among the challenges and lessons, Elijah began to notice a deep pattern. The more he trusted and aligned with his purpose, the more the universe conspired in his favor. Every lecture, every book, every message received was a direct reflection of his faith and discipline. In a moment of introspection, Elijah wrote in his journal, "Everything that has happened in my life, including the pain of being fired, has prepared me for this moment. Every difficulty has made me stronger, more resilient, and more aware of my purpose. The law of attraction has not only transformed my external reality, but has taught me to be the master of my own mind and emotions. I am grateful for every challenge, every fall, and every victory." Elijah realized he was living the essence of what he had always wanted, not only changing his own life, but being a beacon for others, showing that it is possible to turn pain into purpose, fear into action, and doubt into faith. However, he knew there was still one final step to take, an even greater level of expansion, making his message globally accessible, reaching millions of people, and establishing himself as a living example that the law of attraction is a powerful tool for anyone regardless of circumstances or challenges. As he looked over the London skyline, Elijah smiled. He knew that the test he had faced, the dismissal, the fear, the publishing obstacles, had been the most powerful of all. Not only because it brought him unimaginable opportunities, but because it proved that faith, discipline, and internal alignment can transform any life. He took a deep breath, felt the energy of the moment, and whispered, "The best is yet to come, and I am ready." After months of national and international lectures, book publication, and hundreds of lives transformed, Elijah Robinson finally began to realize the true scope of his journey. The man who once felt lost, alone, and defeated after being fired was now a beacon of inspiration for thousands, perhaps millions around the world. Recognition and success had not changed who he was, but amplified his mission, showing that the law of attraction is not just a concept, but a practical tool to transform lives, regardless of circumstances. Every lecture, every video, every published book was an opportunity to touch hearts, plant hope, and awaken the inner power of each individual. On a clear Sunday morning, Elijah sat on his balcony, watching the sunlight reflect on the trees and quiet streets. He picked up his journal and began to write, reflecting on his entire journey. "I look back and see that every difficulty I faced was actually a gift. The dismissal that seemed like the end, the emptiness that consumed me, every night of doubt, it all prepared me for something greater. Today, I have not only found my purpose, but lived to fulfill a mission that impacts lives every day. And this is just the beginning." The feeling of gratitude filled his chest in a way that words could not fully capture. Elijah knew his story was living proof that even in the hardest moments, the universe is conspiring in favor of those aligned with their purpose. In the following days, Elijah received messages from all over the world. People sharing that they had lost jobs, faced illnesses, emotional crises, or difficult relationships, and had found strength and inspiration in his story. Some stories were deeply moving. A woman in Australia said that after watching one of his online lectures, she decided to start her own business and finally believe in her potential. A young man in India shared that he was about to drop out of college, but after reading Elijah's book, found motivation to continue and fight for his dreams. A man in Africa sent a heartfelt message saying that for the first time in years, he felt his life could change, and that he now saw possibilities where before there were only obstacles. Each message reinforced Elijah's certainty that the law of attraction is not just theory, but practice, action, and faith combined.
and he knew his role was to continue spreading this message, reaching more and more people. But the true transformation was not only external. Elijah had changed internally in a profound and lasting way. He no longer allowed fear to paralyze him, did not compare himself to others, and didn't feel powerless in the face of circumstance.